and you should get a prompt. So now I need to just play the slideshow. Okay. Welcome everybody. So my name is Thomas, and as you can see on the slide, I'm the program lead for the Masters in Creative Health, which we have been running for the past. This is our 4th year running, and I'm also joined by my colleague Ngozi. I don't know, are you able to unmute yourself, Ngozi, and just say hi?
Think so. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Ngozi Opara, one of the lecturers in the Creative Health MASc. Nice to virtually meet you.
Great. Yeah, and thanks for making it, and thanks for your interest in the program. So I'll tell you what the plan is. Essentially, we have an hour, so now 55 minutes. Although if there are burning questions and any of you would like to stay on and ask some questions, I don't mind going over a little bit, but I will do my best to try and make this work in the next 55 minutes. And that means I will be presenting an overview over the program and the background, and some of the key elements, also, and then end up with the structure and the application process to join us on the program. And I'll try and do that in half an hour or less. And then we'll just open it up for questions. Feel free to use the Q&A in the meantime if you have a burning question that you can think of. But there should hopefully be time for you to ask your questions in person. But if not, we can use the Q&A function that way. But it would be nice to hear some other voices after me speaking now for the next half hour or so. It would be nice to hear some other voices as well coming in. And Ngozi might have to leave. If Ngozi is still around, I might give her a few minutes as well if she wants to add things. And Ngozi, feel free if you feel like I'm forgetting stuff. Feel free to indicate and just join the conversation. It's nice to have a couple of people rather than me talking all the time. Okay. And you can see on this slide, and it'll be on the last slide again, the contact details for our program. And any of you who are still on Twitter/X, I'm debating hotly on a daily basis whether I should leave. We do have a Twitter feed that you can follow, but we may have to look for the social media outlets because of the difficult politics around Twitter. Anyway. So welcome to this information session on the Masters in Creative Health. And by starting off, I just thought it's useful to have a definition what the program is about and what creative health is about. And this is a simple definition, and I'll tell you in a minute where it comes from. Which says creative health is creating the conditions and opportunities for the arts, creativity, and culture to be embedded in the health of the public. And to that, I would add, it's a few years old, I would definitely add nature being in there along with arts, creativity, and culture. Some people might say it's actually subsumed in culture, but I think it needs to be made explicit that creative health is also to do with the natural environment as much as with the cultural world. But in simple terms, so anything that's not clinical, that's creative or interactive or culturally focused, that might have health benefits comes under the umbrella. And that's why we have umbrellas, I guess, in our background of creative health. And just to say also, it's the first MASc qualification in the world, MASc, Masters of Arts and Sciences, and that tells you already that it's a very interdisciplinary program because creative health is obviously a very interdisciplinary field, bringing all these things together with health. And although I don't want to make this a very hard sale, I just thought I'd point out some of the reasons why you might want to consider studying creative health with us at UCL. if you're interested in any of those things, in research, policy, and practice, ideally linking to health, but it could also be linking to arts and the overlap of those two. And that then leads directly on. Interested in work, in job opportunities in the future, or you might already be doing a job in those areas. To do with health, social care. There's the new movement, social prescribing, if you're interested in that. And the arts and cultural creative sectors more broadly, the community, local government sectors, non-governmental organizations, or voluntary sector organizations as well. And of course, research. So there's a whole broad range. And because creative health is a very new field, we do need people in all of those areas. So there are people who are working on the front line, providing services, running services, developing services, people who are working the statutory sector, whether it's health or local government, but then equally also people who are researchers and work with us on developing the field and understanding the data around what is it that works in creative health and what are the areas we need to focus on more. So there's lots of opportunities there. And also, what is a key focus that's not obvious, I guess, in the phrase creative health in the title, is that there is a key focus on health inequalities and social inequalities more broadly, and something that we call the social determinants of health. And I'm not sure if you heard about what these are, but happy to say more about this if you're interested. So these are sort of the three key elements, if you want. And then why study at UCL? Well, part of the reason, I guess, is that we are the only institution that offer a program like this globally, and we were the first. And as I also mentioned, the qualification, the MASc, was a global first. So we developed the MASc qualification specifically for this creative health program. In the meantime, there's a second MASc running at UCL, and there will probably be a couple more over the coming years. I don't need to oversell this. Most of you have hopefully heard of UCL. It's a pretty good university, globally great standing within Europe, within the UK. And a lot of the program, you will get to explore both UCL campuses, but for those of you who don't know, we have a new campus in the Olympic Park where the 2012 Olympics were held in East London. And that's the photograph there on the bottom, just when they opened that building. And a lot of what we do is happening there, which gives us great new bright spaces to work in. But you will get, if you're interested in the Victorian and Regency estates, that is the old part of UCL, there will be chances to spend time in the old campus as well. In terms of then, I don't want to talk for too long about the broader backgrounds, but I mentioned the definition of creating using the arts, culture, nature to support the health of the public. And this is where that definition is coming from the old parliamentary Group for Arts, Health and Wellbeing report in 2017. So it's now, going on 8 years old, 7.5, 8 years. And it's actually, there's a new version of it, but it's still the foundational document. So this is where creative health sort of came from, at least in a UK setting. But this is also where the terminology has come from. It's still an important document, but clearly things are starting to become a little bit out of date. So therefore, I'll skip this for a moment. The year before last, there was a creative health review set up in order to put more meat on the bones of what the reports did in 2017 and look at these specific core areas within creative health: mental health, health inequalities, social care, end-of-life care, the need for training, which we are part of, value for money, those kind of things, and embedding the work of creative health into existing health systems. So this is what the review has been about. There were two key recommendations. The report had, I think, 10 or 12 recommendations. Does it say here 10 recommendations? Yes. Two of them were, one of them was to set up a national coordinating center, which is the Creative Health Center, the National Center for Creative Health, which is a partner strategic partner of our program. So they were set up in recognition of that recommendation. A second recommendation was to create new opportunities for training and qualifying in the field of creative health, and which is essentially where we came from. So there was a direct recommendation that there need to be more opportunities for people to actually qualify and train and study creative health. And this is we answered that call by developing this program. I mentioned health inequalities already. If you haven't come across the work of the Marmot reports and the Institute for Health Equity, which is affiliated with UCL, this is all about how access to health, like so many other parts of life, is so unequally distributed. And without addressing these inequities, we can't really get to the bottom of addressing most of the health challenges that we are facing. So we can do all sorts of interesting creative things to support people's health and well-being, but as long as there are people who literally don't have enough money to buy food or turn on the heating in the winter, they're not going to be interested in creativity. They're not going to be interested in nature. They need to, we need to address those bread and butter issues and build equity. And that's clearly one of the key starting points for the program. The other strategic element I wanted to highlight, because the program is running in London, and this is a very new development. So this was only launched a few months ago. So London, together with Manchester, also have now adopted this idea of becoming a creative health city. So that was directly supported by the Mayor of London as by the Mayor of Manchester. And there's a whole website with lots of resources now for the London Creative Health City. And again, there's another, the Greater London Authority, the Mayor's offices, and London Arts and Health are both partner organizations we work with a lot, but really useful resources for anybody to come to London and work on creative health, or people who live in London. There are lots of useful connections and resources there. And we are really well plugged into that. Okay. So I can pause very briefly and just see if there are any burning questions on this element. I can't see any in the Q&A. So if that's okay, I will continue then with the presentation. I just wanted to see if there were any key questions on the background that I've just presented, but it doesn't look like there are. So I continue with the presentation, and then we'll take the questions at the end. So that's the background and the context within which we are operating, and obviously a very brief whistle-stop tour in 10, 15 minutes. And now I want to spend a few minutes to talk to you about the structure of what the program actually looks like and what you'll be doing when you come and join us, hopefully next September, October. So to point out, I'll take the very last point on the page first, that you can study on the MASc Creative Health full-time or part-time. So there are two options, either doing it in 1 year, and it is pretty much a calendar year rather than an academic year. So it's from late September until early September, essentially. If you do it full-time, and part-time, it's essentially twice that. So it's the same thing over 2 years. Either way, the structure broadly is the same. It's just how it's distributed. So every student undertakes 180 credits, and that's most of our modules are 15 credit modules, and then there's a big dissertation. So that includes, those 180 credits includes 5 compulsory modules, each of which are 15 credits. So that's 75 credits of our, what we call our compulsory core of the program. So that's arts, nature, and well-being, approaches to interdisciplinarity, lived experience and research policy and practice, introduction to research methods, and a new module that we've just started this year called the Creative Health Lab. In addition to that, you have space to take an additional 15 credit module that in theory, you can take any UCL module that broadly links to health, well-being, creativity, as long as you can make it work within your timetable. But we do have a number of regular modules, suggested modules, and partnerships agreements with other departments. So there's a list on our website. If you go to the link down the bottom of the slides, and I can share that link, or maybe in Ngozi, if you are able to, I'm not sure if you can actually, but we can share that link with you, and look for the degree structure. You will find lists of recommended optional modules. But in theory, you can take anything within UCL as long as you can get a place on it and you can make it work with your timetable. So these 75 credits core, 15 credits optional module, that's half of your credits, and that's your taught component, the component for which you're attending classes. The other half of those 180 credits is your dissertation project. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But so you can see it's a large research project. There's a big emphasis on this program on both practice and research. Before I talk more about the dissertation, though, I just wanted to highlight to you that there is also there are two other qualifications that are not a full master's in creative health, and that's the PG Cert. So a certificate in creative health and a postgraduate diploma in creative health. The certificate is a smaller qualification that's essentially 4 of our core modules. So that's 60 credits, and that will give you a postgraduate certificate in creative health. Whereas with the diploma, you're doing all of our core modules and an optional. So you're doing the same 5 core and optional modules, as well as a smaller independent research project, not a full dissertation. So these are the options. Currently, these qualifications are only available on a full-time basis, I think. But whereas the masters, as I said, the full masters is available as a part-time program. Because the dissertation is so large, though, 90 credits, it can't be evenly split 50-50, because then in the second year, we'd only be doing the dissertation. So the way it's split is that in the first year, you're only taking 60 credits worth of modules, so essentially 4 taught modules. And in the second year, you'd be taking the dissertation and another 2 taught modules, so another 30 credits as taught modules. So here you can see, and there are some modules everybody has to take because we think they're essential to get you started. So arts, nature, well-being, research methods, and the creative health lab, everybody has to take in their first year. And then there's a choice between the other modules you want to take in your first and your second year. So there's an option there. And again, if you go to the degree structure section on our website, you can find more information about that. And then back to the dissertation. Almost all, there are some exceptions, but almost all our dissertations, the dissertations our students are researching, are co-located and co-developed with one of a range of community partner organizations. And I think the list is at about 130 or so. We have a large list of organizations that are largely in Greater London, not exclusively. We also have some a little bit further afield, but most organizations we work with are in the Greater London area, with a bit of an emphasis on North and East London, but almost all of them in London with some exceptions. And you can see here, some of you might recognize some of those names, maybe not all. There's a whole range of organizations, anything from very small community-led local organizations like Carnival del Pueblo, which is a Latin American support organization in Elephant and Castle, very, very small, or Hackney Playbus, which is literally one double-decker Routemaster bus that drives around Hackney, parks in different places, and sets up mobile play centers for people, to very large national organizations like Age UK, or the British Library, or large hospital trusts, and we have a few, for example, UCLH, University College London hospitals, but there's a few other hospital trusts who we're working with, large museums like the V&A, and then very small organizations again. So there's a whole range is the point. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just a small selection of partner organizations our students have worked with over the last few years. And it's changing, we're updating every year. And there is quite a bit of flexibility if you already have a very clear idea when you come to us, who you would like to work with, or you might already have a relationship with an organization that you'd like to work with. Then most of the time we can make that work, and we can make that happen. The key is all the dissertations essentially, and that's just happening now this time of year. So after the first term, students get paired up with an organization. They have a lot of choice there. And right now, at this part of the year, we are having conversations. In fact, Ngozi and I have just been to a conversation between a student, the first conversation between a student and a partner organization just before this session, where the student and the partner meet and start designing a project together. And it's quite an exciting time, which the student then will be working on from between now and the end of the summer, with the dissertations being due in September, unless, of course, you're a part-time student. Part-time students have essentially then till September the following year. And this leads me then directly into thinking about time, thinking about the time scale of the program, because that's a very, very frequent questions we get from people interested in the program. How much time do I spend learning? How much time over the year do I spend? So modules have a range of contact hours, but sort of usually they have at least 30 contact hours, and up to 50 contact hours. And that's not a week, that's overall over the duration of usually an academic term. So modules are either over 10 weeks or over 20 weeks. And therefore you have some modules over 20 weeks, like our lived experience module, and therefore you only have 2 hours a week. Other modules are only over 10 weeks, over one term, like arts, nature, well-being, but therefore it's 5 hours a week. So they're all ballpark in that same space. And then outside of that, you obviously need to invest some time in preparing for classes, doing readings and so on, and then working on your assessment. So the idea is that each of our taught modules, our 15 credit modules, should be about 150 hours altogether, between 30 to 50 hours in class, and then an extra 100 thereabouts hours actually in your own time, including all the group work. So not just on your own, but working groups, working on your own, reading, studying, preparing assessments, and so on. And if you're a full-time student, then after the second term ends, so that's the end of March, the dissertation becomes pretty much your full-time focus, although we still have one module, that's the lived experience module, that runs right till the end of the academic year. But today is a central place for students still to come together on a regular basis, which is really useful. And students really, actually, we used to end lived experience after the second term as well. And it was because the students asked us to keep it going so that they're not all on their own just writing the dissertations. They have still one point of the week where they can come together as a class. So lived experience runs right through the academic year. If there are any questions about this, I'm very happy to take them. We're coming near the end of my part anyway. So just something I guess you'd be interested in are the admissions criteria. What kind of background are we looking for in a student? And because the program is quite broad, this can really be quite broad as well. So the normal standard UCL acceptance criteria for master's programs is as a 2-1 or international equivalent on an undergraduate degree. And there's obviously conversions. If you're an international student, there's conversions there. And actually the admissions office in UCL can help you with that if you don't know whether your qualification is a 2-1 or above or not. And these are just some of the subjects that students have come to us from, but there's a broad range. So we regularly have students from psychology. Very often we have students with a medical background, not necessarily straight out of a medical degree, but or a nursing degree or occupational therapy degree, but also students who've been working in the field in the health services for quite a number of years. Similarly with nursing and other professions like occupational therapy, and we've had a dentist before on the program and so on. Students come from life sciences, natural sciences, many students from all parts of the arts, liberal arts, performing arts in particular, and visual arts as well as broadly the humanities and social sciences. So really broad. And if in doubt, and you're not sure whether your qualification is within the ballpark of what we are looking for, then just write to us. And if you can make a case, even though you have a background, and currently, last year we had a student who was an engineer. It's not on the list there, but they made a very clear case of why going from engineering, from mechanical engineering, structural engineering to creative health was an important move for them. And it was very clearly argued, and the student did a really great job on the program. So we will not turn you away because necessarily undergraduate degrees in an unusual area. We are looking at your application in great detail and see what is the argument you're making, why creative health is the next best step for you, is an important step for you. Also, to add to this, so generally it's a 2-1 in any of those and many other possible fields, undergraduate, but every year pretty much we have a student or two who for some reason didn't get a 2-1. They might have just missed out on a 2-1, got a 2-2, or they have a very different background, but they have enough personal and or professional experience to make up for that. And therefore we will accept them on an individual basis. So just because you don't have a 2-1 doesn't mean it's a lost cause. Do again contact us, and we will consider your application if you can make up for having missed out on a 2-1 or having a different undergraduate qualification. If you can make up for that with your personal and professional and or professional experience. I hope that makes it clear. And then another question that we've getting asked regularly, so we added this slide recently to this presentation, is what to put on my statement. I already said that the statement is key. So if you have a background in marketing and you want to come studying creative health, you need to explain to us why creative health is a useful next step for you. Why do you want to study creative health, having a background in marketing, or as I said, the student we've recently had in engineering. So what you put on your statement is really important. In a way, your qualification, of course, your undergrad is important, but the statement, we really want to hear from you. We really want to know why you want to study with us. And things that are important is to relate the statement not just to your interests, but also to what you have already done. So if you have relevant voluntary or professional experience, do tell us. Similarly, as I already made the point on the previous slide, if you don't have one of the types of degrees that were on that list on the previous slide, then tell us how your experience is relevant, but also where you want to take this from your undergraduate, from your previous background. It's fine to change direction in life, right? And why is this a good moment for you to change direction? Why creative health? That's what we want to know. We'd like you to tell us a little bit about an understanding and how the program is going to be relevant to you. Thinking about some of those core modules that we see you have done a little bit of research, actually. You've looked at our program and you understand a little bit of what it's about. So you can actually argue how studying lived experience, for example, will be important and relevant for you. Another key thing is, because sadly we do get quite a few applications every year that write to us as if they are applying for an art therapy program. And we are not an art therapy program, and therefore we're rejecting applicants regularly because of that misunderstanding. Because art psychotherapy is something very specific, and there's a handful of programs in the UK where I can qualify as an art psychotherapist, but it's a clinical qualification. We're a non-clinical program. So it's very different. Obviously, there's a relationship there between arts and health and art therapy, but they are different things. So don't write you're applying for a program in art therapy if you're trying to apply to us. Also, we've had applications in the past that write about a specific optional module that's not one of our cores in the application. And we can never guarantee a place on those modules because things change, timetables change, and so on. We can only guarantee our core modules. So don't base your whole application on a module in medical anthropology because we're not a medical anthropology degree. There's a good chance you'll get onto the medical anthropology module if that's what you want, but we can't guarantee it. But don't write to us that medical anthropology is what you really want to study because that's not us. You can study medical, you can take the module at UCL, hopefully, but it's not what we provide. So therefore, base your application on our modules, not on ones from other departments. And yes, as I said already, do tell us where you want to go with this. Why is creative health a good degree for you to take, a good master's for you to study in now, and where you want to take that in your future life, in your future work. And again, going back to your personal professional experience, make sure you connect things. Don't make it a formulaic thing that it looks like it's written based on a template. Write about yourself and how this is relevant to you, how your personal experience links with the program and where you want to go. We really would like to know a little bit about you and understand why you want to study with us. I hope that's helpful. Just being conscious of time, just a couple of slides about funding, because again, that's something that always gets asked, of course. Those of you who live in London or have a link to East London in particular, there is a really generous East London scholarship. And every year since that started, we've had at least one, sometimes two students benefiting from that scholarship in our program. So that's definitely one worth checking out if you have any link to any of the East London boroughs that border the Olympic Park. And that could be you've gone to school, you currently live there, you've lived there for the last couple of years, you're from there. So there's a few ways to look at the criteria if you have any link with any of those boroughs. It's definitely worth checking out. There are also, it's difficult to get funding for master's programs, sadly, but there are some other scholarships there. If you're from the Global South, for example, there's the UCL Global Scholarship, and there's some other bursaries. And we are every year working really hard to find some funding opportunities. So keep an eye on that. And do contact the UCL funding office. There is a web link here for you to look at opportunities for supporting you financially studying, because we realize it's a big expense, it's an expensive program. London's an expensive city, and the opportunities are limited for funding. But check out those funding opportunities and links to hopefully find some way to support your studies. And I think that's all from me. Here again are the contact details. And Ngozi, is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything that I skipped over a little bit too quickly that didn't quite come across, that I may have forgotten altogether?
No, I don't think so, Thomas. You did a great job. Thank you for that. You did mention linking the degree structure page. I just sent it to someone who put it in the Q&A, but I'm not sure how to share it with everyone. But if there's a way to share that link, that'd be great, because it does.
I will try. It seems the Q&A is entirely disabled, and I'm not sure if I can but I stopped sharing, and I'll see if I can play with that, because the chat looks like it's completely disabled. Let's see. Type message. Let's see. I can try. I will try this now. In the meantime, you can't see the Q&A in Ngozi, can you?
Yeah, I can, and it seems like they all can. So thank you. I think it's Victoria.
Okay, everybody. So can you do you wanna, while I look for this, do you wanna see if there are any questions? Do you wanna read out some questions, or see if somebody would like to come in and ask a question themselves? I'd love to hear from some of you. We have about 20 minutes.
There's one here, Thomas, that says, "Can you please share more about the Creative Health Lab?"
Okay, hold on. I think I found the link. Let me just see if I can share. If I can share this with everyone. This is the link for the structure. Did this go to everybody? Can people see this? Yeah. I hope it. I hope it did. It says it's in the webinar chat. So I hope that that went to everybody. And the other link I will share is about the funding. And then I'll respond to that question. So the Creative Health Lab. I'm still not entirely sure. Ngozi, can you see this in the chat?
Yes, I believe
A
so.
link. I put 2 links in the chat. I hope it says to everybody, so I hope you can all see these and access these links now. And to our degree structure page and to the funding postgraduate scholarship page. So the Creative Health Lab, we just set that up last year. So this is the first year it's running. Basically because students have fed back to us that they would really like to have a module that focuses on specific skills, and that's also bespoke, so they can make it their own a little bit, and the space to reflect on the rest of the program. There's a lot. The program is quite intense in many ways, especially if you're doing it full time. It's quite full on, quite a lot of contact hours compared to other programs. A lot of things happening. And what we therefore provided is on the Creative Health Lab is a space to reflect, and that is what we call a journal club. It's essentially like a reading group of sorts where we deal with text, but it's also a space to reflect. And then another key element of the Creative Health Lab is to do with skills development. So identify the key skills that people have, that people need, and see how we can help develop those skills. And that then builds up towards the second term, when it's going to be more employment focused for life after MASc. While obviously everybody's still working on the dissertation, but that's the best time to have conversations then about thinking about the world of work in that creative health space. And from next year, there's going to be a change. Every year, since the start of the MASc in Creative Health, our students have organized a conference in May. And any of you, if you're based in the UK or you happen to be around in late May, it's going to be the 27th, 28th of May, the last week in May. You're more than welcome to join us for that conference. So if you're in and around London, or you can make it to London in May, late May, please do drop us a line and we can share the details of the conference with you. If you join our mailing list on the website, you should also find out about it. So every year our students organize a 1-day conference, and in the future that conference in the past was part of the lived experience module, where it's not, as and Ngozi teaches that module and she can probably confirm it's not a natural fit. But we felt it was important to have the conference and have students organize a conference. But it will fit much better into the Creative Health Lab. So in the future, that will be the third element. So the Creative Health Lab, space to reflect and discuss, space to acquire new skills, and then thinking about external communication and organizing the conference. I hope that answers that question. Let me see any more questions. Okay.
If you apply it to part-time study, Thomas, can you switch to full-time and vice versa prior to enrollment?
Even after enrollment, you can. So every year again, we have a couple of students whose circumstances change and they're making a switch. This year, we've had definitely one who switched from full-time to part-time, which is very easy because you're just dropping modules. And then you need to decide which ones you keep first year and second year. If early enough, you can also do it the other way around, especially in first term, because research methods, arts, nature, well-being are part of the core. So in first term, it's only lived experience. You don't have to take on the part-time. so therefore there's still a few weeks time if you don't take lived experience to start onto the full-time, or if you do take lived experience anyway, then it's very easy to switch from the part-time to the full-time. So it is possible to switch between the two. If you're not sure, again, if you're unsure which one to study on, then come and talk to us. The application is the same, right? And there is a chance once you have been made an offer, regardless if you apply for the part-time or full-time, to have conversations with us. We have over the summer, we always offer one-to-one conversations with all our offer holders. And then you can ask those questions, for example, and we can advise you what might be best. And it's still not too late if by October you figure out, or November even, that you think you're in the wrong program, you'd rather be you're in the part-time, you'd rather be full-time or vice versa. It's still possible to change.
Next question, is creative health embedded into the social care work in the UK?
I seen that. I just spotted a question there, actually. Please bear that in mind. I'll come back to that. Because I just saw another one about part-time, whether it's exactly, and I just spoke about part-time, so I stick to that. But it's exactly half a week. And as I think I've shown on the slide, it doesn't quite work out like that. That part-time is not exactly the half on a week-to-week basis as full-time. It's the half the credits, but even they are not split evenly between the 2 years. So it's the way it works out is the first term for part-timers is relatively intense because 2 of the core modules they need to take the research methods and arts, nature, well-being, and then it becomes less intense. And there is quite an amount of choice there. So it's not exactly half. It just works out overall half. But there is some flexibility in making it work for you with your timetable, right? If you're working part-time, and there's set days that you can't make in the first year, say, then you can balance your modules, except for arts, nature, well-being, and research methods. You can balance your modules so that you and the creative health lab as well, I should say now, so that you can make that work around the timetable. And sorry, and so now I go back. Just one more question on time actually here. Can I ask about the 2 to 5 contact hours per week? Is that per module or an overall figure? It's absolutely per module. So yes, it's not overall. So on a weekly basis, you're spending roughly, so if I think of term 1, for example, arts, nature, well-being has 5 contact hours, lived experience has 2 contact hours. This is not for full-time students, okay? Arts, nature, well-being 5, lived experience has 2, so that's 7 contact hours. Research methods has 3. It changes a little bit over term because there's some additional, but let's say 3, so that's 10 contact hours. And then the creative health lab has an extra 3, so that's 13. We're talking about 15, 16, between 15 and 20 contact hours a week. That's contact hours, right? Which again sounds low if you're coming from a very full program, but if you're coming from an arts undergraduate program, for example, then that's a lot of contact hours. So that hopefully answers that question. Now I will go back to the social care work in the UK. I'm not sure if I understand the question right, so please do come in with a follow-up. It's been asked anonymously, so I can't unmute you and ask you to ask it yourself if you'd like to identify yourself if I'm not answering it correctly. But social care is part of creative health very often. But I wouldn't say that creative health is embedded into social care work. And it's also obviously a lot of our expertise is about working and researching in the UK, but we're also trying to make the program relevant to international students. So we are trying to do our best not to make it just about the UK. That's another thing to say. But social care is an important element to some degree. but it's not a social care program, the same way it's not an art psychotherapy program. It's these are cognitive elements. It's part of that, but there are specific programs to study social care explicitly. This is about thinking about non-clinical ways to support health and well-being. And yes, creative social care is a key part of that. In particular, thinking about young people and thinking about people, older people living with dementia. It's an important, potentially important element, but it's not what the program is exclusively about. I hope I answered that question, but please do feel free to follow up on this. If I'm not mistaken, the next question is, would the program facilitate us with funding options if we get in? Does this program have a specific scholarship? So I've shared the links for scholarships, and there's a specific scholarship for UCL East. That's the East Scholarship. In the past, we did have one scholarship for home fees only on the program, and hopefully we'll be able to reinstate that for next academic year. So that depends on what our budget looks like. So there is a chance that we will have one. So it's a competitive process, and it's not an excellent scholarship. It's based on needs. So it's based on applicants' financial needs if that comes back. So there may be a scholarship. And yes, of course, we will support you with your scholarship applications in any way we can in terms of references and so on. But sadly, there are limited resources to support master's programs in the UK. That needs to be recognized. So we can't promise that if you're getting a place on the program, that you will also get funding for it. That's something we definitely can't promise, but we will do our best to help, is all I can say. The next question, I think, is how many students approximately are there on the program? And Gozi, please feel free if I miss any questions. And if you want to chip in as well, actually, do you want to take that question? Just so they don't just hear my voice?
Sure, I'm typing just so folks know. Some of the answers are going directly to the answered column of the Q&A, just so we can get through them all before we leave.
Okay.
So
do you want me
actually missed that
keep
question
talking then, and you do the typing? Is that better? Is that a better use of our resources?
That sounds good, Thomas.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep talking then. That's fine. So I just go through them from the top, and then Gozi is busily typing. And yeah, we will answer these questions, and hopefully we'll have access to the Q&A afterwards, so we can share. We have a FAQ, a frequently asked questions section on our website. So any questions we don't get to answer now, we will try and answer remotely. But as I said, I'm also happy to stay a few minutes if it takes a little bit longer, if you can stay to wait to hear an answer to your question. Back to how many students approximately are there on the course? Our cap is 35. We don't want to take more than that. And for the last 3 years, we've exactly been on that cap. So we had, I think 1 year we took 36 because there was there was a student who there was a mix-up, let's put it like that, and therefore we ended up with a 36 student because we didn't want to turn them away at a late point. But yes, 35 is our target, and for the last few years we've been around that number, which is, I think, a really nice number to work, because there's a nice community, a nice cohort, but still we can do lots of interactive things. We can go out for arts, nature, well-being, into nature for 1 week, and we can do yoga, and we can do practical things. We can visit museums and cultural spaces and so on. We're a small enough group for that. So that's the rationale behind the size of the cohort. What are the types of job roles I can imagine myself doing after this degree? Well, I think imagine yourself is a really nice way of putting this in the question, because to some degree the world is your oyster, and it's really what drives you, what you're interested in. But I've put some of those. There was on one of the slides, there were some of those early on possibilities of, if you're interested in working in the voluntary community sector, in local authority, in the health services, as well as research. So there are lots of possibilities there. At the same time, it's not a vocational program in the same way that a medical, nursing, or dentistry degree would be, where there's a clear through line to a particular job. you do need to do a little bit more work of making this your own and taking it in a direction you want to go with, because it's usually a very diverse cohort of students, a very diverse range of things that we do. So there's not one single job role. But as I said already, with the Creative Health Lab and personal tutoring as well, which I haven't actually mentioned, so that every student gets a personal tutor assigned at the very first day of term, and then they can provide a lot of ongoing support for you. And that includes also helping with career support. And in addition, there's a UCL careers office, and who are getting to understand our program better and better every year, so they can provide much more career support as well. So there's quite a lot of advice and support throughout the year or two with us, to help you thinking about where to go afterwards. But it's really about making it your own. The next question, may I know when the application deadlines are and how long the processing time is? Separately, is there any support for mental health and diversity? Thank you. So these are two different questions. Ngozi, are you able to look up the link to the deadlines? That should be on our website.
Just trying to find it. I'll post it.
Maybe if you can find that, maybe we can stick the link in rather than me just saying it and then it gets lost. Sometimes there's a rolling deadline as well, that we have a deadline in late March and then we extend it on occasions if we have capacity and keep it going till June, but definitely nothing before the end of March. But Ngozi will look up the link for the deadline and put it in the put it in there. And there are, of course, UCL is a very large university, and therefore has a very large student support services. And at UCL East, we're working really closely with our student support offices. So there's a really nice team of colleagues who are providing mental health support. But also, given that the program that we are, although as academic personal tutors, we're not meant to provide direct support, but what we are hoping is create an environment that's supportive within the community that's supportive within the program as well, and recognizes everybody's abilities as well as limitations to those abilities, and the whole diversity in the cohort. And therefore, hopefully, is already a supportive environment for everybody's health, and including mental health. And then, of course, if there are difficult moments and crisis situations, there is a strong support service within UCL. Of course, there can be a lot of demand in that service as well. It's a large institution, but we have very good support mostly for that. And if you have specific concerns, again, do contact us about it, about both mental health or accessibility and so on. Kelly, tell us some more about the dissertation. Well, where to start? And again, I don't know if I can actually unmute you, Karen. If there's, well, we don't have a lot of time, because it would be good to realize what more you'd like to hear. But the dissertation is obviously a cornerstone piece. It's half of all the credits. It takes up half the time, pretty much, of being on the program. And for us, it's really important that it's a partner. It's a real world and real life project where you're working with a partner organization that identify a real problem and you coming in to help and work with them on it, but it's co-produced. So that's really the key element to the dissertation. I hope that's enough now. I need to keep it brief because there are a few more questions in the chat, and I'm realizing it's 1 minute to 6 o'clock. So any of you are happy to stay, I will go through the rest of those questions. And Ngozi, if you have answered some of those already, then just let me know and we can skip ahead. So the question is, I'm interested in creative health in social care work and where there's much support for this type of work in social care settings. I think there is increasingly across health and care a recognition that this type of work, this non-clinical aspect of engaging with arts, culture, nature, the world, is doing a lot of good and therefore social care as well as mainstream healthcare recognize more and more the benefits of this. And therefore I do think there is a lot of and growing level of support within social care as well as medical care of more creative and non-clinical approaches, which is what we are all about. So I would say yes, and it's a work in progress, but I would say yes. Again, there's another question, two questions on the part-time about what the part-time table looks like and what days are set aside. I don't know if I already answered this, but it depends a little bit. Part-time timetable depends on which of the modules you choose to take in your first and which in your second year. At the moment, I can tell you the course Arts, Nature, Wellbeing, and Research Methods run on Tuesdays and Thursdays primarily, as does Lived Experience if you're taking that. And then the Creative Health Lab is Wednesdays. So so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is most common, at least in term one, for part-time students. And then Mondays and Fridays tend to be clear, but it depends a little bit on your choices. I hope that also answers the question, what does the part-time table look like? Is there opportunities to speak to graduates? Yes, there are. We're going to have an open day in person if you are UK based in February. Please look out for that. I think, is it the 12th? I think it's that's the date that's in my head. It could be the 16th. I think it's the 12th of February. But we have a postgraduate open day on campus in UCL East, and there will be current students there. Very often at these information sessions, we also try and bring a current student along. Today, sadly, we didn't have a student with us. And again, a great opportunity would be, for example, coming to the conference in May. But if not, we can make that available as well. We can try and connect students, offer holders or applicants with graduates or current students if they're interested in. There are two longer questions, that's why I left them, but I will address them, and I try and be done by 5 or 10 past at the very latest. I've worked in qualitative research from a commercial standpoint and run a lot of socially engaged work as a facilitator artist with fringe communities. I'm sure my experience matches the course's needs, but I don't have the degree. What advice would you have for me applying based on my portfolio? It sounds great. Drop us a line and ask that question more specific, so we can look specifically at how long, how much is your experience, and so on. And then we can give you a good sense of whether we'll be able to support your application, because we need to make a case for non-traditional so-called applicants to the university to accept them in suspension of their regulations, as they call it. So therefore, contact us with the specifics of your background, and then we can make you an informed idea whether it's worth your while applying. From what you're saying, it sounds like it might be, but it would be useful to hear a little bit more about the details of this. Another one I have a bit of a non-traditional background. Due to undiagnosed ADHD, I got a 2.2, again, due to ADHD. Would it still be worth applying, and would it be worth talk in my application about the impact of ADHD? With a 2.2, I would say it's definitely worth applying if you have relevant interest and background. And lived experience is a core part of our program, and therefore it's also a core part of the application. So do write about your lived experience. You can be explicit about living with ADHD. It can be more broad about your lived experience, but definitely write about that. We don't want to ask anybody to open themselves up and expose themselves in the application, but at the same time, we do encourage you to write about your experience, including your lived experience. I hope that answers that. But yeah, with a 2.2 undergrad, definitely apply if you're interested and you think you have otherwise what it takes, and you just missed out on the 2.1. If you don't have an undergrad degree at all, but you have lots of experience, then contact us and we can have a conversation about that. I hope that's all the questions now. And I'm not sure how many people are still in the room. Still most of you there. Thank you for sticking with us. So I actually did it by 5 past. I don't know if there are any final questions. Who do we contact to discuss our application? In the first instance, I'll put that address in the chat. That's the last thing I'm going to do. In the first instance, it's our admissions email address, and our colleagues in the program office will answer those. And Ngozi has to leave. Thank you so much for your help, Ngozi. Sorry you didn't hear much from her. But if you didn't get enough, then Ngozi is going to lead the next of these in late February. So if you want to hear Ngozi lead one, then do join our next information talk. So I just put in the PG admissions. So it's simply PG-admissions at UCL AC UK, and that address goes to our colleagues in the program office, and they will then we have a very small team, I shall say. So there's only 2 or 3 of them, and they will then share anything that's addressed that should go to us directly with us, and then we can get back to you. That's the best way to go about it if you have very specific questions. I hope that makes sense. And okay, so if there are no further questions, and thank you for bearing with us for an extra 7 minutes, and thank you for your interest. I'm always sorry that we didn't get to hear from any of you, but it's the format doesn't really allow for that. And you can see we were pushed for time anyway, rattling through those questions. But yeah, we'd love to see you hopefully very soon. Any of you who can make it and who are interested in the conference, write to us. We'd love to see you in May for the conference and for our in-person open event in February, in about a month or so. I stop the recording now.